For thousands of years, East Asia has been the center of technological innovation, and its impact, particularly but not limited to the late Middle Ages, created the necessary conditions for the momentous shifts of global power that will occur in the early modern period. The story of East Asia centers around China. If the Roman Empire never fell, and its cultural impacts were similar, except China had a lot more time to extend its technology even further than their geographical location. We're going to be focusing on the Song dynasty of China at first. Now we all know about paper, which spread out from China to India, to the Islamic Empire, and reached Europe by way of Muslim-controlled Spain by the 1300s. With paper comes printing, and the printing press, which originated in eastern China, was absolutely revolutionary. Together with both paper and the printing press, Eurasia saw an explosion of literacy, the spread of religion, and the exchange of information. Chinese inventions didn't stay the same when they crossed borders, though. For example, the printing press was modified in Europe by Johannes Gutenberg, who created a metal type. Another Chinese invention greatly modified by Europeans and other people outside the borders of China was that of gunpowder. Gunpowder originated in China, and when it spread across Eurasia, it was modified to create simple firearms as well as cannons in both Europe and the Middle East, and eventually the cannon invention even reached China itself. Metallurgical methods, and especially naval technology, a notable example being the magnetic compass, were also great contributors to the revolutionary developments that were to come, and those were both technologies that would originate in China and spread outwards. Now, China's economy, with both its extreme demands abroad as well as its large domestic market, was a primary fuel in the livelihoods of many people all across Eurasia, and produced a powerful ripple effects where developments to the Chinese economy would see massive effects elsewhere as well. China, during this time, was the largest economy in the entire world. And their massive global economy was possible because of its buyers. South Asia, the Arab world, and Southeast Asia were crucial to China's establishment as the center of the Eurasian economy, and the economy of the entire civilized world at that period. In cities such as Quanzhou, foreign merchants from these lands established cosmopolitan centers, such as what we can see in New York City today, of course not as extreme. China's technology was also highly spurred by outside influence. For example, the printing press was invented in order to spread Buddhist scriptures which originated in India and spread through China through Central Asia. Agriculturally, China had a lot to thank Vietnam, who gave them drought-resistant rice, and India, who exported cotton as well as sugar to the Chinese market. The Song dynasty of China faced attack, first from the Jin dynasty of modern-day Manchuria and next by the Mongols. Now this would change Chinese history forever, because after all these attacks, the Song dynasty would indeed fall to the Mongols. Out of all the countries that the Mongols tried to conquer, China was by far the hardest. A long and brutal campaign against the northern Jin dynasty of China saw Mongolia's victory and the conquest of half of China. Next, they turned to the Song dynasty, which by this point only controlled southern China. But instead of a brutal campaign, they launched a less violent course of action by coercing the native Chinese people. One such method was guaranteeing landowners estates in exchange for their support, and being less violent on rebellions and rebels. This game of politics granted the Mongols a unified China, and at least at first, the Chinese intellectuals were content with this development. Now here are some positive things about the Mongols. After the Mongols acquired China, they debated on what to do with it. Well, at first, one dude wanted to mow everything down and create huge lands for pastoral use, but luckily the Mongols settled instead on using the agricultural systems already in place and not disrupting Chinese society to an unprecedented degree. But of course, they still did extract most of Chinese wealth for themselves. Now, the Mongols were pastoralists, nomadic hunters who had no idea how to run a country like China. So their only course of action was to uphold China's government policies and governing methods as well. The Mongol ruler Kublai Khan lowered taxes, built roads, and built canals, acting like a benevolent Chinese ruler. And the Mongols weren't particularly discriminatory against other religions. They built Confucian temples, Taoist places of worship, and they were very fond of Buddhism. Now you might be thinking, living in China under Mongol rule must have been pretty good. Well, there were many benefits, but as far as the Chinese were concerned, it was far from positive. The prospect of Mongol rule, that is. The Mongols treated the Chinese like second-class citizens. They arbitrarily arrested and harassed them. Chinese were also subject to harsher laws and barred from most positions in government. And even though they adapted Chinese styles of governance, they did not assimilate to Chinese culture. They refused to learn the Chinese language, and they did not let other Chinese people learn the Mongol script. And also, the capital of modern-day Beijing had a large plot of land for nomadic herds and Mongol tents, and intermarriage between Mongols and Chinese were forbidden. After a little over a century, an economic downturn, plague, and peasant uprisings, the peasant uprisings caused mainly by the tyrannical rule of the Mongols towards the Chinese people, would overthrow the Mongol rule, and the dynasty that would follow, the Ming dynasty, would attempt to erase all remnants of foreign rule. The Ming dynasty was the last imperial dynasty run by the ethnic Chinese themselves, and they will start their campaign by reinstalling Neo-Confucian values, which is a mix of Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. And they would take Neo-Confucianism and exacerbate it to an even more orthodox degree than seen before in the Song dynasty. New temples were built, books were restored, and societal positions of low peasant respect and strict gender roles became the priority during the first decades of the Ming dynasty. Government was restored to its previous form, such as seen in the Song dynasty, with an even further emphasis on centralization. The emperor and his eunuch faction centralized rule to an unprecedented degree. Together they would work to restore advanced building projects and would also recover the economy to once again be the most prosperous in the entire world. China during this time was the best governed country, despite the fact that it was extremely authoritarian. What's really impressive, however, were the naval expeditions of the Ming dynasty. The Emperor Yongle would launch the largest navy in the world at the time, which would sail all the way to eastern Africa, and some rumors even cite the ships reaching the Americas. Simply put, China was on its way towards advanced maritime expansion and colonization. So why don't we know about a global Chinese empire, like what we observed in European countries? It was because Emperor Yongle died, and the eunuchs that supported him were not favored by the high-ranking government officials. To them, China was the center of the world, and there was no value outside of it. China was, simply put, too arrogant to expand, and instead focused their efforts on defending their northern borders to Mongol attacks, by doing things such as building and finishing the Great Wall. And so, just like that, the greatest navy in the world sat stagnant, and so the ability for China to properly solidify its standing as a true international superpower.